Let's talk about research design. Before we go into the details of research design, meaning whether we pick an experimental or non-experimental approach, a field or laboratory setting, which time-related decisions we are making, which cases we select, which data gathering method we pick, we should remain aware what the motivation in the design process is to begin with. That means that all study design decisions are ultimately informed by the goals defined for your study, your objectives, and your research problems. At each decision and step, you should check back whether your design still allows for achieving the goals, whether this component of the design and method fits in with what comes before and can motivate or guide the remaining steps of the process. And the design process is a very decisive moment in the course of a study, because usually things that go wrong or are not appropriately decided at the design stage lead to severe problems later on. So for instance, if you don't take care which cases you select, that may lead to suboptimal insights in the remainder of the process and in not learning as much about the research problem as you could. Okay, more specific questions you can ask yourself when it comes to tying in the design with the research objectives is to ask yourself, is there a clear link between research objectives and research problems on the one hand and design decisions on the other hand? Can you also explain why? So doesn't it only feel like there's a match, but can you explain and point to where and how and why the design matches the objectives? Second, you should ask yourself for each research question and hypothesis that you've already come to in the previous steps of the research project. For each research question and hypothesis you want to explore or test, can the core constructs or concepts mentioned in that question, mentioned in that hypothesis, be operationalized in the design that you plan? For instance, if you are hypothesizing about how persons feel and design your study to be a content analysis of texts, that may create problems because you can't really pinpoint feelings that people experience just based on contents they produce, even if they have produced them yourself. So can you really capture what you want to capture with the decisions that you are making? If you want to talk about changes over time, you need to consider a design that is longitudinal, for instance, that tracks things over a longer period of time. Can you also explain how exactly the constructs or concepts can be captured? The details are sorted out when we talk about the measurement instruments themselves, but in principle, is there a straightforward way to capture it? And are there any obvious alternatives, and why don't you rely on them? So looking for emotional expressions in texts instead of self-indications in surveys may be something you actually want to do, but then you need to put forth the rationale, for instance, that you think or a previous research has shown that people are bad or manipulative in how they present their emotions in interviews, right? So that could motivate other ways of capturing it. And then you should compare your design and method to similar study, similar with similar research objectives, and see if they use the same design, a similar design, or a completely different design than you did. You've most likely read these studies at this point and probably decided very consciously to depart from their methodology, or very consciously decided whether to stick with the main design decisions that they made. So if your study is similar but not the same as some other study, you may want to lay out why you deviate and what that deviation aims to do. What could it produce? Could it produce some knowledge gain that you could emphasize? Something novel, innovative, that promises to improve certain weak points, fill certain gaps. The same is basically true if your design is just completely different. Then it's even more important to consider why you think it's even necessary or helpful to come around the corner with a totally new research design and not stick what's already there. Obviously, you think there is some weak point, some gap. So explicate what it is. What's the knowledge potential, and emphasize the innovation and novelty. If you are really persuaded that your approach is a good way to go. It doesn't necessarily have to be better than everything that came before, but it should promise to add something, to help understand something that the others probably don't. It may be more deficient in other areas, but nevertheless, together with the other studies, you could learn more or new things. That's important to emphasize.